Welcome to Hacking Your ADHD. I'm your host, William Kerb, and I have ADHD. On this podcast, I dig into the tools, tactics, and best practices to help you work with your ADHD brain. Hey team, I had a listener write in recently asking about finding purpose and how they feel like their life is just a bit of a mess. They don't know what they want to do and they feel like everyone else has it together. So in today's episode, we're going to be exploring these ideas, while at the same time questioning if these are even the right questions that we should be asking. I'll be diving into a number of ways that I certainly don't have my own life together, and we'll also be getting into self-determination theory and how we can apply that to looking at what we want to do with our life. If you'd like to follow along on the show notes page, you can find that at hackingYourADHD.com/185. When I can, I like to simplify the decision-making I have to do throughout the day, because there are a lot of things that I have to keep track of, and I really don't want to forget the important stuff. That's why I start my day with AG1. It gives me the confidence that I'm not forgetting about the things I know my body needs. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support. I trust AG1 because AG1's in-house team of doctors, scientists, and researchers work with third-party experts on studies that validate the benefits of AG1. With multiple research studies to back up their formula, I know I'm providing my body with the nutrients it needs. It means one less thing for me to worry about throughout the day. I love AG1 because it's easy, and because I made it a habit, I don't have to think about it. And I appreciate that I don't have to worry that I'm doing the right thing for my body. In a recent research study, AG1 doubled the amount of healthy bacteria in the gut, including 2 species known for supporting gut and whole body health. If there's one product I trust to support my whole body health, it's AG1, and that's why I've partnered with them for so long. It's easy and satisfying to start your journey with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/ADHD. That's drinkag1.com/ADHD. Check it out. I also wanted to let you know about the Hacking Your ADHD newsletter, Any and All Distractions. And that's what this newsletter is all about. The things that have caught my interest over the past week that I think also might be interesting to you. In it, I bring you the top things of the week that have caught my attention from the world of ADHD and beyond. If that sounds like something you'd like in your inbox, just head over to hackingYourADHD.com/newsletter and sign up. Alright, keep on listening to find out how to follow your purpose when ADHD is pulling you in every direction at once. In 2019, I went to a panel at the International ADHD Conference. I don't exactly remember what the panel was about anymore, but it had a live screen that we could send our questions to from our phones. While watching the questions pop up on the screen, I thought, I wonder how their profanity filter works. While having ADHD and some impulse control issues, I decided to test it out and went with the first question that popped into my mind. Does anyone actually have their shit together? It turned out that there wasn't a profanity filter, so my question popped up on the screen to the laughs from the moderator, Ari Tuckman. But the great thing was that he decided to take the time to answer that question because it's something that a lot of us feel. We see everyone else doing their own thing and think, man, wouldn't it be great if I were just a little bit more put together? Then I might have my ADHD figured out. When Ari answered the question, he said no one has it together. At least not all the time, and especially at an ADHD conference. Part of the listener's question here revolved around the idea that it looked and sounded like everyone else had it figured out when they listened to podcasts and watch videos. Trust me, we don't. I mean, at least I don't, and I know a lot of other creators who don't show a majority of their struggles. Comparatively, I saw one TikToker explaining the way she kept her house clean for filming videos was that she didn't. That she only cleaned the angle she was filming from for the videos. And a quick pan from the camera showed that she wasn't lying. I mentioned this because it's an incredibly important fact for us to keep in mind when consuming content online. I try to be open as possible about my struggles while making these episodes, but there are things that I'm not comfortable sharing. Also, there is only so much I can pack into an episode, so you're only getting a snapshot of what's going on with me. It's vital that we don't compare our lowlight reels to someone else's highlight reels. Even the lowlights I mention on the podcast tend to be the highlights of my lowlights, the mistakes and problems that I can learn from and feel comfortable sharing. So let me give you a few more lowlights from this week, and remember, this is definitely not everything. Let's see, I'm averaging 5+ hours on my phone every day. I recently hit over level 3000 in a game where you sort colors in a test tubes, so kind of related to that phone thing. I have my atrocious rate of working through my emails, even with someone helping me. Not sending out my newsletter even after having written it because I can't summon the executive function to do those last few steps. And I haven't worked out in a few weeks because I've been having stomach problems because of poor dietary choices that I continue to make despite knowing better. Alright, I don't want to go on too much here. I don't want to scare everyone off once they realize what a mess I actually am. Joking, of course. Plus, there are a bunch of things that would require a lot of background information to make sense. Anyways, I say this to let you know that you aren't alone in your struggles, but I also don't want to make it seem like there's no hope either. One of the pieces I took away from what Ari said at the panel was that we don't have to have everything together all of the time, and we can have some of it together some of the time. And this goes for everyone. So it's important to remember that we don't have to have ourselves together all of the time. That isn't a realistic goal. I mean, take the lowlights example of my emails. Let's say that I actually achieved the fabled inbox 0. Well, that only lasts until I get my next email. It's not a discrete thing that will ever be finished. It's a process. While I would like to be more caught up in that process, I also have to work on accepting it as something that requires continuous work. The same goes for not working out in a while. It's something that I have to get back into, but there will always be times when I could do more and times when I'll do less. This goes for following our passion as well. It's not an either-or situation. It's also a process. Although I'd also say it's worth asking why we even want to follow our passion if we don't know what our passion is. Our problem lies in believing that there is a correct choice of action. That's the appeal behind the idea of finding your true passion. It creates the image of a correct answer to the question, what should I do with my life? This is especially appealing to those of us with ADHD because we often have such a wide range of interests and things that we want to do. We don't want to have to choose what we want to pursue. We want there to be a right answer that we can arrive at. And it feels like perhaps if we listen to enough podcasts, read enough books, and spend enough time thinking about it, we'll find that answer. To add to that, we have to deal with the fact that we also have ADHD, and that makes following through with what we want to do hard. But it feels like if we find that thing that we're truly passionate about, perhaps our ADHD won't quite be as much in the way. Or maybe our ADHD is what makes our passion work. We can harness our hyperfocus or draw upon all our disparate interests and create something unique. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that no matter what we do, we're always going to have ADHD. Regardless of what we're doing, ADHD can make it hard for us to follow through with what our intentions are. While I try not to be all doom and gloom about having ADHD, it does need to be acknowledged that even in the best circumstances, this condition can make it a lot harder to do things. I think this is an incredibly important point because if we're trying to find our passion through what comes easily to us, then we're going to have a bad time. Not just because we often get bored with what's easy, but also because there are parts of everything that are going to be a struggle, even with the parts we enjoy. I love writing and I get a ton out of it, but right now my Steam Deck is calling to me and telling me that I could take a 15, maybe even a 30-minute break to play some video games. And so I'm experiencing some resistance to sitting down and putting words on paper. About the only thing keeping me in my seat right now is the fact that I have a deadline on finishing this episode. This is what a big piece of this podcast is about. How do we get ourselves to do the things that we want to do? So it's incredibly important that when we think about purpose, we realize that even those things that we want to do are probably still going to be hard. Combined with that with the fact that there will be parts that will be naturally hard, it becomes clear that the ease of effort is the wrong metric for finding our passion. So then what's the right metric? Again, I think it's important to emphasize that there is no right answer here. This isn't something where we're going to have a spark of insight while we're showering and have everything fall into place. But we can look to what actually makes us happy with what we do, and for that we can look to self-determination theory, or SDT. This psychological framework posits that people are motivated to grow and change by 3 universal needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. If we feel in control of our lives, capable of doing things well, and are connected to others, we will thrive regardless of what we choose to do. So let's talk about what's involved here. Autonomy refers to how much control you have over what fills your time. Now, what's important to remember here is that this isn't just about the explicit demands that are put on you, but also the things that you feel like you have to do. You may have a high degree of autonomy on something, but if it still feels like you're being just pulled along, it can be hard to actually feel that autonomy. I feel this way sometimes with this content creation grind. Alright, next we have competence, which is just about our ability to be good with what we do. Again, this is important to understand in relation to how we view that competence. It doesn't matter if you've mastered a skill if you think that you're only mediocre at best. This is worth mentioning in regards to ADHD since many of us suffer from imposter syndrome, where we don't believe we've earned where we are, and so can have a poor view of what our competence actually is. Finally, we have relatedness, which is our feeling of connection to others. This need is about building meaningful relationships and feeling part of a community. When people experience relatedness, they feel more motivated and fulfilled because they see themselves as a valued member of a group, whether it be family, friends, or colleagues, which is again something that many of us with ADHD can struggle with. So while it's easy for us to identify what we need to look for is autonomy, competence, and relatedness, it's also clear that those things aren't always going to be the most natural fit when you have ADHD. But that doesn't mean that they aren't valuable things to look for. In fact, looking through those things again, I think we can acknowledge that despite the difficulty, those things are incredibly important for our ADHD brains. It's because we struggle with these things that make them so important. Research suggests that interventions based on self-determination theory principles can improve self-regulation, motivation, and overall well-being for those of us with ADHD. This means that instead of looking for an all-defining purpose or finding a passion that we are destined to follow, we want to look for things that build our more long-term satisfaction with what we do. This means that instead of finding our passion, that it's instead something that we can build into. My worry with this piece is that it may feel like I'm just kicking the proverbial can down the road, that I'm just rewording the question of being unable to find one's passion. So I want to come back to the point that what we're looking for here doesn't have a right answer, but looking for our passion is asking the wrong question. Because what are we really asking here? We're asking what would give us the most satisfaction with our lives. What's the correct course that I'm supposed to be taking? And these questions suppose that there will be an answer, when in reality, there are countless paths that lead to life satisfaction. With that said, it's also worth considering that while there is no right answer, there are certainly wrong answers. But this is great because it gives us a starting point, because now we can ask, well, what don't I want to do? And we can answer this question in as specific or broad terms as we want to. Don't want to work in an office? Great. That gives us a huge lead and we can eliminate a lot of options. Or maybe it's simple as I don't want to be a garbage collector. Although, I don't get that. Those trucks look really sweet to drive. Regardless, starting from the position of what you don't want is a great starting point as we work on building towards the things you do want. From there, it's about building that autonomy, competence, and relatedness within that framework. All right, hope this helps. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. Before you go though, let's do a quick rundown of today's top tips. 1. No one always has everything together. Don't compare your lowlight reel to someone else's highlights. Everyone struggles, even if they aren't advertising it. It's unrealistic to think that we need to have everything together all the time. Just focus on doing what you can. 2. Tasks like managing emails are ongoing processes, not one-time achievements. So be sure to make sure that you're viewing them in that frame. 3. Self-determination theory's principles are autonomy, competence, and relatedness, all of which are incredibly important for us to cultivate in managing our ADHD. Alright, that's it. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. Feel free to connect with me over at hackingyyouradhd.com/contact. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do so is to tell somebody about the show, especially if you think they'd like a particular episode. Just click the share button on your podcast player and send it over to them. And now for your moment of dad. What do you call an empty can of Cheese Whiz? Cheese Whiz.
You may not realize it, but every minute of every day, you're enjoying your First Amendment freedoms. You can wear what you want, give out your opinion for free, even if it's unpopular. Listen to your playlist. You can put a sign out on your front lawn that says, "Vote for Bigfoot, someone you can believe in." Pray to the God of your choice, or don't. You have the right to hang with a posse that thinks like you do. Tell the government what you think about its policies. They're the freedoms that let you be you, and they're all brought to you by the First Amendment. Learn more at freedomforum.org.